Hey everyone, I'm Pete, and welcome to Retro Game Attic. The Game Gear was always a console near and dear to my heart. It has a pretty extensive library of games, further bolstered by a plethora of Master System ports. Now don't get me wrong, the console is well loved, but for most intents and purposes, it is overshadowed by the juggernaut that is the Nintendo Game Boy. Today I want to try a different video format where I put together a starter game collection for the Game Gear based on a maximum $100 price point. Lucky for us, there are a ton of awesome Game Gear games that can be had for cheap, so let's get started. First off, I'm going to lay down a few ground rules. For the sake of this video, I'll just be browsing online retailers like eBay, Mercari, and others to level the playing field. You can find good deals on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, and others, but the results will widely vary. We want to stay within that $100 limit, so no really expensive games here. I'm going to try to start a well-rounded game collection that will encompass multiple genres and give us some gameplay variety. The games should provide a good replay value, that way your dollars will go further and hopefully give you more playtime with Sega's bulky brick. The goal of this video is to focus on the games, so let's assume you have a starter console already. So let's go! First off, let's start with the solid, tried and true platformer, Sonic Triple Trouble. Developed by Aspect and published by Sega in 1994, the game features standard Sonic platforming in a formula most of us already were very familiar with, even at this early stage in Sonic's existence. Dr. Robotnik, as he was still known at the time in the US, really wants those Chaos Emeralds, so it's your job as Sonic to get them. This is not a bad thing though, as the game has colorful visuals and sound and runs very smoothly, or as smoothly as it can on that Game Gear screen, that is. You should be able to get a few hours of enjoyable gameplay out of this one, so I suggest picking it up. It can be had for around $12. The game's predecessor, Sonic Chaos, is also a solid contender with similar gameplay, but I feel the added characters and graphics give Sonic Triple Trouble the edge. Number 2, my puzzle game suggestion goes out to Super Columns. Developed and published by Sega and released in 1995. Super Columns is the sequel to Columns, but ups the ante with the addition of new block types and also grants the player ability to turn the lines of blocks before they descend into their final resting place. The music, while enjoyable, is more of the same as the original, but the graphics are colorful and slightly enhanced. In addition to the endless flash modes from the original Columns, there is now a story mode where you must defeat opponents to advance. Sounds like fun! This game can be had for around $4. Seriously though, Super Columns truly earns that Super designation, and it is an absolute steal at around 4 bones. Next up is Beat 'em Up. The original Streets of Rage represents the beat 'em up genre very well in the Game Gear. It was developed and published by Sega and released in 1992. The game is a watered-down version of the Genesis release, and it's amazing to see what they pulled off on the 8-bit Game Gear. The controls are tight and the gameplay is fun with decent enemy AI. The graphics are detailed and colorful with pretty nice sized sprites, and the music is awesome for the Game Gear. Some concessions had to be made to get this over to the Game Gear, so Axel and Blaze are the 2 playable characters. No Adam here. 3 rounds from the Genesis version are omitted, leaving 5 rounds remaining, and the knee smash grapple move is also absent. Overall, Streets of Rage on the Game Gear is an excellent handheld experience that will leave you coming back for more. I feel that the sequel is a better game, but for the sake of budget, I'm going to suggest the first entry here. It can be had for around $15. Next up is Racing. GP Rider is a fun little motorcycle racing game on the Game Gear. It was developed and published by Sega and released in 1994. The splash screen before the title screen features the Sega Sports logo, which I thought was pretty cool at the time. I'm weird, I know. The sound and graphics get the job done. You're not going to see or hear anything amazing here, but the colors do pop and the scrolling is actually pretty smooth for the Game Gear. The controls can feel slightly slippery at turns as expected due to the arcade-style gameplay, but the game is genuinely fun and similar to Sega's Hang-On series. You are able to choose from a few different bikes here. Fun fact, the music played at the bike selection screen is the same as the shop music in Fantasy Zone. An absolute must-have for any Game Gear racing fan, and a great deal at around $6. My pick for a shooter goes out to Choplifter III. Also available on the Game Boy, but the Game Geared version is exclusive to North America. It was developed by Beam Software and published by Extreme Entertainment Group, which totally sounds like a front, and released in 1994. You take control of a rescue helicopter, and your mission is to rescue hostages behind enemy lines at various locations. Aside from various enemy fire, the challenge comes in that you're limited in the amount of hostages that you can carry at a time, so you periodically have to drop them off to safety before you can pick up more. The graphics are detailed for the Game Gear and the sound is passable. Your helicopter controls well and the gameplay is arcade style and is somewhat repetitive, but mini-bosses are scattered throughout the levels to add some variety to the gameplay. This one should keep you occupied for a little while, and it could be had for around $13. Alright, we're halfway through, and we're at $50 even right now. We still have 5 games to go, so let's see how I can spend your remaining $50. Next up is sports. I'm not huge on sports games, but for some reason I really enjoy golf video games despite never playing a game of real golf. With that being said, my pick for a sports game is PGA Tour 96. Developed by Sega Software and published by EA Sports and released in 1996. It's about what you would expect for a mid-90s portable golf game. You were able to choose from a selection of clubs and a roster of what I assume were popular golfers at the time and play in multiple courses. The game features 4 play modes: stroke play, match play, tournament mode, and practice mode, with even an available 2-player mode. The graphics are somewhat sparse, but have vibrant colors and the control is what you would expect, and the sound is passable. Still though, it's a decent portable golf game for the time and a great deal at around $5. Next up is arcade. My arcade genre pick goes out to Arcade Classics. Developed by Al Baker & Associates, published by Sega, and released in 1996 on both the Genesis and the Game Gear. Arcade Classics contains 3 classic arcade games: Ultra Pong, Missile Command, and Centipede, with an updated Sega version of each game. The original arcade ports play extremely slowly, but the addition of the Sega versions of each games are what really appeal to me. The gameplay is tightened up a little bit and the visuals get a small upgrade. Still pretty difficult to discern unless you are rocking a Game Gear with the McWill mod. It reminds me of a really crappy version of what Nintendo did in the previous year with updating old Game & Watch games with Mario characters and Game & Watch Gallery on the Game Boy. Still though, these arcade games are classics in their own right, and they are a welcome addition to the Game Gear library. While not done extremely well, the Sega versions included are a weird curiosity that can eat up some time while you think about why you purchased this game for around $14. Board/table. There were a handful of Poker Face Paul card and table games on the Game Gear, which included Blackjack, Gin, Solitaire, and Poker. My pick though goes out to Poker Face Paul's Poker, developed by Adrenaline Entertainment, published by Sega, and released in 1994. The game features 5-card stud and video poker modes. The 5-card stud mode pits the player against a computer, and the player is solo in the video poker mode. The visuals are not impressive, even for the time, but the sound is passable. Let's face it though, the primary focus of this kind of game should be on the gameplay. Does it deliver? Yes! It's pretty hard to mess up poker, and Adrenaline Entertainment did a good job here considering the hardware and the time it was released. It can be had for around $2, or less than the price of a candy bar in some places. This one is an absolute must-have to round out your Game Gear collection. Next up is role-playing. There were only a handful of role-playing games released in North America for the Game Gear that go for a decent amount of money, so out of budgetary constraints, I'm going to suggest Dragon Crystal for the RPG genre. At the risk of being called a Scott the Woz stan, which I am, I'm not an RPG guy. Developed and published by Sega and released in North America in 1990, Dragon Crystal has a familiar RPG premise of the era. You must battle monsters and traverse through various dungeon floors to obtain the Holy Grail. You are accompanied by a dragon, which levels up and helps you in battle as you progress through the game. It helps out in later floors as the difficulty ramps up. The visuals are very appealing and the colors are bright and vibrant. I especially like that the environments are scattered with trees and flowers rather than dark castle walls. The sound is above average for Game Gear fare, with some pretty good tunes that get the job done. The game was later brought to the Master System in Brazil and Europe and was also released on the 3DS Virtual Console. It can be had for around $17 loose, and for that price I think it's well worth it. And finally we have Action. Now I'm going to be a little biased on this one since I've had my copy since I was a little kid. Shout out to my parents for snagging me a copy of this one in the clearance bin at Bradley's back in the day. Based on the classic 1994 film, True Lies is a fun top-down shooter with controls reminiscent of Smash TV. Developed by Beam Software and published by Acclaim in 1994. The portable version was also released on the Game Boy, with more fleshed out console version released on the Super NES and Genesis. You are Arnold Schwarzenegger, the man himself, equipped with guns and bombs as you shoot your way through 6 levels based off movie set pieces. The gameplay isn't anything revolutionary here, but it is fun and challenging at times as you avoid enemy fire by hiding around walls, bushes, and other things. The visuals are appealing for the Game Gear, with good color use and appealing sound. Most likely no songs will get stuck in your head, but they are fitting for the run and gun nature of the game. The game culminates with you defeating Azzy, preventing a nuclear disaster just like in the movie. Overall, there isn't a ton of variety, but for a mid-90s movie tie-in on a handheld console, you can't get much better than this. At around $18 for a loose cart, it does push us slightly over the $100 mark here, but I think it's well worth it. So how do we do? Platformer, Sonic Triple Trouble, $12, Puzzle, Super Columns, $4, Beat 'em Up, Streets of Rage for $15, Racing, GP Rider at $6, Shooter, Choplifter III at $13, Sports, PGA Tour 96, $5, Arcade, Arcade Classics for $14, Board/Table, Poker Face Paul's Solitaire at $2, Role-Playing, Dragon Crystal for $17, and finally Action, True Lies at $18. Total, $106. Okay, so we went a little over the $100 mark here, but I think we built a pretty decent starter collection for your Game Gear collecting journey. There are plenty more great Game Gear games out there that can be had for a good price, so get hunting and snap out some of those carts. So that's it, guys. Thanks for checking out this episode of Retro Game Attic. Best of luck in your game search, and take it easy.